Okay, Daniel, we just watched the Golden Globes, and this is one of the most shocking ceremonies I think I've ever watched. So many upsets, so many surprise winners. If you had to pick like one or two huge surprises, what would it be? What would they be?
I mean, as the night was going on, there were several surprises, so I don't know why the last one was the most surprising, but I felt like after we got the big shockers out of the way, the movie winners would go more or less according to script, and then Grand Budapest Hotel won Best Picture. That
Right.
one yeah, I was like, I was literally, I was writing the recap article for Gold Derby, so I do a little pre-writing, and I had like after all the major shockers were out, like, okay, my first paragraph was Birdman wins three, Best Picture actor, and Boyhood wins three, and then after Grand Budapest lost or won Best Picture over Birdman, I like literally did a double take, and I'm like, I have to rewrite those three paragraphs. And that's really that's what was going through my head at the time. It was just yeah, and I don't remember any other speech that happened after that. So like Eddie Redmayne, I vaguely remember he was kind of charming. Julianne Moore, I barely remember a word of that one. So
This morning, I changed a prediction. I had screenplay going to Birdman, which ended up winning, but I changed it to Grand Budapest. And I was very confident. A lot of people, the top 24 users had Grand Budapest winning screenplay. You did. I think some of our other editors did. And when it lost screenplay, I'm like, oh, that's too bad. Grand Budapest Hotel is going to win nothing tonight. And then it wins Best Picture out of nowhere, kind of like 12 Years a Slave last year, won absolutely nothing at the Golden Globes until the Best Picture at the very end. That one was definitely the most shocking on the film side. On the TV side, we had a ton of shockers. We had Maggie Gyllenhaal. We had Joan Froggatt. We had Transparent. I think that's my biggest shock on the TV side. Transparent for Best Comedy. Wow.
yeah, that was kind of surprising. Although I mean, I did understand it. That was sort of when I heard that announced, I was like, wow. But yeah, it made sense to me. And most of the ones on the TV side, I can see how they happened. I mean, and what we did learn, I think, is that if you have a first year show up against the second year show or later, predict the first year show unless there is a very good specific reason to predict the old show because the new show wins. I mean, that's just what happened. I mean, the only shows that won anything, including movie miniseries, obviously, which are mostly new content, but the only shows that won anything uh, that debuted before 2014 were Downton Abbey for Joanne Froggatt and Kevin Spacey, and that was only second season of House of Cards. So yeah, I think
Wow.
they age well at the Golden Globes.
Right. And the fact that Orange is the New Black has never won a Golden Globe is really, really surprising considering how big the show is. However, if the show had entered in the comedy categories last year, there's no doubt it would have beat Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It would have won Best Comedy Series for its first season. Do you agree with that?
Oh, hands down, hands down. Yeah,
They have no one to blame
really not even a
except,
question. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the fact that Orange is the New Black is still a Golden Globe loser, they really just have themselves to blame for going in the wrong category last year. I'm still mad that they did that.
Well, I
But
mean, unless you ask North Korea, of course, we have the North Korean soldier who
yeah.
very wisely pointed out that it's funny, but it's not quite ha-ha funny.
So besides that moment, what else did you think of the show? I was in the press room at the Globes. Everyone loved Amy and Tina. There was a sense of sadness that this was their final year. Their monologue was absolutely perfect, I think.
Yeah, I love Amy and Tina. Obviously with the Golden Globes, there's so much going on, so many awards that they're not actually on stage much, doing much material. But when they did material, they were great. And just like last year, their best joke was about George Clooney. Last year, it's rare when an award show joke sticks with me for a year, but I still remember them talking about Gravity. They said, he shows he would rather float out in space and die than spend one more minute with a woman his own age. And then his new, much younger wife, they had a really, really great joke about all her accomplishments, and her trophy husband won the Cecil B. DeMille Award, so good for him.
Right. And after he won, he came backstage, and someone actually asked him about Amy and Tina's jokes about him, and he loves the jokes. And everyone should go watch that video that it's on our YouTube channel or check it out on Gold Derby where George Clooney talks in the press room after his win, and it's just a really great moment where he just says they were hilarious, and yeah, I'm glad he won. That was a really good choice of the substitute to know,
I think
because
he's a
he's
little young for it. I mean, yeah, and the same thing happened a couple of years ago when they gave it to Jodie Foster. I do feel like, someone in their 50s, especially someone who is still relatively in their prime and doing a lot of work, it's a little premature to give them a Lifetime Achievement Award. But the Golden Globes do still want you when you're still relatively hot. So, 50 is as old as they're willing to give you a Lifetime Achievement Award before you're too old for them.
and plus, he's a big he was a big TV star and a movie star, and since the Globes, honor both mediums, it's really great that they pick someone who has had his foot in both, unlike someone like Woody Allen or Jodie Foster. But should we talk about each category kind of one by one and see what we thought about the win? And okay, let's start. Let's start right at the top. Best drama film. Boyhood won. I think everyone was predicting that. Not really a shocker there.
Yeah, not really surprising, and like I was saying as I was working on my article, I really did not need an upset there. So even though it's not my favorite film in the category, I was just glad that I didn't have to do any extra work. So congrats to Boyhood for making my life a little bit simpler.
And
Uh,
backstage, I talked to some of the other press people, and they were all over the place when I asked them about this category. Some of them thought Selma would win, some thought Theory of Everything, some thought Imitation Game. No votes for Foxcatcher though. For Foxcatcher.
Or Foxcatcher never really in it. Yeah, I think its fortunes this Oscar season have steadily fallen. Not because it's a bad film. I mean, some people we know that don't like it. But it's it's just not a showy film. It's a very somber and downbeat film and it doesn't have the showy theatrical kind of performances that awards usually like, especially in a tragic story like that. So I can see why it's struggling a little bit. Although I think I have a hunch now that Steve Carell, after BAFTA, I have a hunch since I feel like there's a hole in Best Supporting Actor. I have a hunch they're gonna put him in there.
I would love that. That's where he belongs. Let's face it. And as a lead actor, he probably won't even get nominated. But as a supporting actor, he he could potentially upset J.K. Simmons, but probably not really. What am I talking about? It's J.K. Simmons' Oscar.
J.K. Simmons is a little too far out front, even for Steve Carell with a borderline lead role like Steve Carell has. J.K. Simmons is almost borderline lead too, and it's a much showier performance. And the whole Whiplash is has the opposite trajectory. It's going up.
That's true. Okay, so drama actor and drama actress. We have Eddie Redmayne, Julianne Moore. No surprises there. Let's talk about maybe the Oscar category because that seems to be, one of the closest races at the Oscar. Will it be Eddie Redmayne or will it be Michael Keaton? Both of them won Globes tonight.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to the theory of the Oscar audition necessarily. Like, if you give a good speech that, if you weren't already the front runner, you would suddenly become the front runner just from a good speech. Because I remember, several years ago, Forrest Whitaker for Last King of Scotland was going through the award season. He was winning everything. He was kind of rambling. He wasn't really coherent in many of his award speeches. He won the Oscar anyway, and then he pulled out all of the stops. His Oscar speech was brilliant. So I don't think necessarily whoever gave the better speech here is further out front. But I did get a different feeling from the crowd and just the moment. When Michael Keaton won Best Actor for The Imitation or for Birdman, and I didn't get that feeling when Eddie Redmayne won for The Theory of Everything, and it sort of reminds me about how last year at the Critics' Choice Awards, Lupita Nyong'o got her first big win for 12 Years a Slave, and that speech was so huge and so gracious, and I don't think that the speech itself gave her the win. I just think the moment, it felt like she feels like your best supporting actress this year, and then she was just unstoppable after that.
Right, and I totally agree. Keaton's speech was the moment. And Eddie Redmayne, I just feel like he's given the same speech before, even at the Hollywood Film Awards, which people make fun of. It's kind of just a copycat speech from that event. But Keaton's speech was probably one of the best of the night. Same with, I think Kevin Spacey's was really good too.
Yeah, yeah. I think both of them were up there, and you know, I don't look at an award speech and I think, you know, you have to you performed to win the award, and now you have to perform for me to, you know, once you get on stage. I honestly don't care if they read a slip of names on a sheet of paper. That doesn't really bother me, but just the sense of the career achievements, the career comeback in a sense that Keaton has had, you could sense all of that when he was up there. And I think that's what made the moment feel like, oh, he might be the Oscar winner. It feels like he has the narrative a lot more than Eddie Redmayne does, and that makes a big difference.
And so Keaton won comedy actor. Comedy actress was Amy Adams. This was kind of an upset because I think Gold Derby overall was predicting Emily Blunt for Into the Woods. I I will toot my own horn and say I was predicting Amy Adams.
So was I.
Nice. So we both got that one. But I could have seen it go either way. I mean, Emily Blunt was really great, and she's won a Golden Globe before, maybe like 10 years ago. So we know that they like her. But Amy Adams' win was extra special because of her back-to-back wins, right?
Yeah, she's the first, at least, I don't know about overall at the Globes, but she's the first woman in 30 years about to win Best Comedy or Musical Actress on the film side twice in a row. The last one was Kathleen Turner. It was Romancing the Stone and then Prizzi's Honor, I believe, in 1984 and 1985, which I only remember because I wrote an article asking that very question about so I'm pretty sure I have those details right, but yeah, she's the first back-to-back winner in this category in almost 30 years.
And it's so perfect because when I think of Amy Adams, I think of comedy and laughter. She's so funny, and it's kind of weird that she has two Globes for comedy, and she's like really serious actress. It's just the way the Globes work.
Well, to be fair, she did win both Golden Globes for fairly serious roles. I mean, American Hustle was a comedy, but it was very dramatic. She was crying. She was agonizing over morally and Big Eyes. I think, let's face it, Big Eyes is a drama. They put it into Best Comedy. I mean, it has more. It's more comedy than say my week with Marilyn was when they put that in musical or comedy. Yeah. But I really think it's more of a dramatic performance, and I picked her over Emily Blunt just because of, neither, it's possible neither will get in for the Oscar, but I think Amy Adams is the stronger possible contender, especially after she came back with that huge BAFTA nomination. So I thought it's a dramatic performance, it's an Oscar contender, I gave the edge to Amy Adams there, and I'm glad I did, because there are very few instances where I got the close call.
Right. This is one instance where I'm going to brag about it for probably a lot of many weeks to come, because I got so many wrong, including Best Musical Comedy Film. We already talked about it a little bit, but Grand Budapest Hotel, wow, I'm still in shock about that.
Yeah, that was, I don't know where that came from. I thought, and it's not that it's a bad film. I just thought Birdman has been so beloved. It's been leading the nominations at most of these events. It has more gravitas than Grand Budapest Hotel, which has a sort of a lighter tone. So I thought, yeah, it's gonna be their fancy pants, artsy, sophisticated, auteur kind of comedy win for Birdman, and then they went with Grand Budapest as it's consolation prize for losing everything else. It just happened in Best Picture. Right. And we thought it would be the opposite. We thought Grand Budapest Hotel was going to win screenplay as the consolation prize, and Birdman was going to win Best Picture, and they completely flipped that.
Right. And I remember, I feel like every article we wrote this award season said that, if the winner was not going to be Birdman, it would be Into the Woods, because there's such a big, musical group, this Hollywood Foreign Press Association. So the fact that our number one and our number two choices were both off the table, that doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes it does. So we have to admit when we're wrong.
Yeah, I think I had Grand Budapest in second place. I even wrote the article. Saying, yeah, I think I wrote the article saying that Into the Woods could do it because of the musical love, but then we saw especially after BAFTA, when it led the BAFTA nominations, I definitely Into the Woods was not going to get in ahead of Grand Budapest and Birdman. So I thought Grand Budapest second, Birdman first, but I had Birdman way out in first. I did not think that was going to happen.
Right. And last year at the Globes, 12 Years a Slave won Best Drama. Best Comedy was American Hustle. Best Screenplay was
It was her.
was her, right? And then director was Gravity. So you had four. That was definitely spreading the wealth. You're giving four of the Best Picture contenders a big trophy like that. And this year they kind of did that. They gave Grand Budapest and Boyhood and Birdman. But Boyhood actually won two. Boyhood also won director. Were you predicting that for director?
I was predicting that for director until Tom O'Neill, convinced me to go
Oh,
with Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu in our Tuesday Slugfest, because there's so much love for Birdman, obviously, in the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. I just had Richard Linklater as the default best director there, and then I started, after I moved Iñárritu in, I started messing with everything else, and that's where I got into trouble.
right. I changed that this morning. I had Linklater in there. I changed it to Birdman winning. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah. We should tell people Tom has given us permission to bash him for that.
and
So,
we should.
let us
We
take this
should.
moment now. It is his damn fault that we
Right.
got those wrong.
And we'll talk about this more when we get to Kevin Spacey. However, Tom made a lot of good points, and I always feel like if there's a reason to switch your vote, you should do it, unless you shouldn't do it. And I think
Yeah, yeah.
this is one of those cases where, of course they're going to give it to Richard Linklater. He directed this for 12 years. So let's go ahead and talk about the supporting ones. I don't know if we're going to talk about this much because they're so predictable. J.K. Simmons and
Yeah.
Patricia Arquette, everyone was predicting that. Should we just move on?
Yeah, these two are pretty much this is like 2009. They are the Monique and Christoph Waltz this year. It's almost game over in these categories. I feel like we can just sort of move on, unless Grand Budapest Hotel pushes a supporting actor or actress in there at some point, and then God only knows.
Yeah. It's almost going to be boring in a way because they're going to win everything. Um, I guess we should issue a challenge to Simmons and Arquette to give different speeches at each show because you're going to win the Critics' Choice, you're going to win the SAG Awards. Just make it fresh and exciting so that people don't get bored with you by the time the Oscars come around.
Yeah, they should play a game with themselves or something. They should, like, with each other. They should dare each other. Okay, you have to work this phrase into your next acceptance speech, and or like you have to, Patricia Arquette, at SAG, if you win, you have to somehow, work in the word rutabaga into your acceptance speech, and then go from there.
They should do that Scorsese game that Kristen Wiig invented a couple of years ago, where
Oh, I think I remember that.
every time
Yeah, for a little.
Scorsese was mentioned, you had to take a shot or something.
Yeah.
So it looks like we have three more film categories to talk about. Let's talk about animated feature. That was a big surprise. I think everybody was predicting Lego Movie, even though some people thought How to Train Your Dragon was better. They still went with Lego Movie. Where did you fall on that one?
I predicted Lego Movie by default. This, I have not been totally convinced that this film was going to win. I liked it well enough. I guess I'm not one of its biggest fans. I think it's nice. It's funny. It is very jokey. It's little toys. I mean, sure, Toy Story won, but that had themes and all this sort of stuff. This is literally just Lego action figures playing around with each other. And it's a really ingenious concept. I'd love to see it nominated for production design, for instance, because it's just beautiful and genius. But I think is it substantial enough to win? And I just don't know if the Academy is going to think it's big enough or important enough or impressive enough. And so I was wondering, well, what's going to take it down, though? I haven't seen that happen yet, and it's now happened. I'm not sure if it's going to win the Oscar, because I'm sort of wondering if maybe it could fall out like some sequels have done. Cars 2 didn't get in. Monsters University wasn't even nominated. So I think
Really.
How to Train Your Dragon 2 is still vulnerable because unless you're Toy Story, they don't particularly like sequels. So it'll be interesting. I think Tale of Princess Kaguya, which wasn't nominated here, I think that still has a chance.
But I love the Lego Movie. It kind of has this feeling of like a cult college type humor that hit it really big. Like it, and I love it. I wanted to win everything, but I can see why it lost. It just didn't really, it didn't really connect with these very, very strange voters. And I would love to know who all of these Hollywood Foreign Press voters are that make these decisions. And I would love to know whether they consult with each other first. Like we always talk about spreading the wealth. Do they call each other up and say, let's give Boyhood this, let's give Birdman this, let's give Grand Budapest this, or does it just randomly happen that all of these different studios win awards, all these different movies, win awards? No one ever really comes out, with like 5 wins. It's always like 2 or 3 wins. I would really like to know more about these people.
There's definitely a method to their madness. I know we were talking with Tom in the pre-show Slugfest. I think he was talking about how there are factions within the Hollywood Foreign Press. They're lobbying for certain choices. Selma had a group that was fighting for it, and so on one level they're individuals who have their own personal tastes. On the other end, they're not making these decisions in a vacuum. I think there's a certain awareness of each other, or else we wouldn't see this kind of, like I don't, unless there's some sort of communication, I don't see results like Grand Budapest Hotel winning Best Picture Comedy, and then director Linklater, and then screenplay Birdman. It feels a little, even when it surprises us, it feels a little too neat.
Yeah. And then, speaking of Selma, it won Best Song. I changed that this morning, or maybe even yesterday. I don't even remember. But I had big eyes for a long time there because of Lana Del Rey. She's the hot, young, new singer. But Glory from Selma is such a good song, and it mentions Ferguson. And it's just so current and so now and so cool that I'm glad I changed it. Selma now has a big win, not as big as picture or director, but it's a win. And
It's on the board.
yeah, and it's a really good song. I could listen to that all day long.
Yeah, it's a terrific song. I've been predicting that the whole time, and it's hard sometimes at the Golden Globes. They like their big stars, but you didn't have really a lack of big stars in that category. You had Lord for The Hunger Games. You had Lana Del Rey for Big Eyes. Common and John Legend are big stars too for Glory. So, yeah, I sort of had that from the beginning. I never quite wavered because it feels important to the film. It feels important in general. It has an important social message. It's rousing. It has that great, gospel chorus. So yeah, that always felt to me like a winner.
And then what about score? What
I
about
got lucky.
oh, so you did have Theory of Everything.
I did. I switched. And again, like it's like we say, sometimes you switch things and you get it wrong. This was when I switched it and I got it right. I had Birdman for a while, and then I thought of a couple of things. I thought Birdman, if I thought it was going to win picture, actor, director, maybe screenplay. I didn't think it was going to win five. So I thought that, they have a reason not to give it to Birdman here because the score was disqualified by the Oscars, so it doesn't really have predictive value for them anymore, and it's a chance for them to go somewhere else. So I thought Theory of Everything, because I've heard the most about that score, which might possibly be because I interviewed the composer, so I was more familiar with that score. But I picked it, and I got lucky. It could have easily been Imitation Game. It could have been Gone Girl, but yeah, I lucked out.
My personal favorite score was Interstellar, but I did
Mine
love the
too.
theory. I love the Theory of Everything score. I was predicting Imitation Game mostly because I thought they would give it something. It's such a, a beloved movie. Maybe not amongst the Gold Derby editors, but amongst the critics, across the country. This movie is really, really loved. I thought it would get something, is what I'm trying to say, and it got nothing. And so, but that's why I was predicting it. If I could change my vote, I would love to change my vote because I hated predicting it for a win because I didn't really care for that movie very much.
Yeah, I think I didn't I thought it was okay, and I had severe problems with its handling of Alan Turing's story. But I think the thing we learned, not just on the film side with Imitation Game, but especially on the TV side, is I think the Golden Globe voters do like to spread the wealth, but they are not afraid to shut someone out. They did
Mm,
that a lot, and we thought, okay, they'll want to give this something, and they'll want to give that something. They didn't want to give True Detective anything. They didn't want to give Orange is the New Black anything. They didn't want to give Olive Kitteridge anything. They didn't want to give The Good Wife anything. They all had three or more nominations, and so yeah, they are not afraid to just like gone. No.
right, and that's a good segue to the TV side. Up until this morning, I was predicting True Detective, and then I actually read the article Tom O'Neill's Fearless, 100% Perfect uh, predictions, and he was right on a lot of them. He was wrong on some too, Tom. Come on, if you're watching this, you were wrong you were wrong on some. But the one that really stuck with me was the Fargo versus True Detective, and I know you were predicting Fargo, right?
I switched. That was another. That was my last switch. I switched from True Detective to Fargo literally on Saturday night, and I just thought, and luckily it wasn't an emotional decision. It was a completely logical decision. I just think five nominations, the most nominated program. As we've said now, they're not afraid to shut out a program, but their most nominated program is not going to win something. And I thought, it probably won't win the others, although that turned out to be wrong anyway. So it'll at least win best TV movie limited series. And after I had that reasoning, I thought, oh, there's no way anything else can win. Just to me, it just felt like, oh, that must happen. And
Right.
luckily, that turned out to be the case in at least one category.
Right. I changed my vote today, and I didn't look back. Mostly because Fargo was one of the best shows of 2014. I can't wait for season two. Although I'm very much dreading season two because there's no way it'll be as good as season one. But hey, let's hold our judgment. But True Detective, I just felt was really, really overrated, and I thought that they would spread the wealth here. I thought Fargo would get miniseries, and I thought Matthew McConaughey would get actor. But what happened in actor? This is crazy. No one saw this coming, right?
No one saw it. I mean, I wasn't too surprised by it. After Fargo won Best TV Movie Limited Series, I thought, I think I had Billy Bob Thornton ranked third. I thought, okay, Matthew McConaughey will win, but they can go with another movie star. They could go with Mark Ruffalo in The Normal Heart. They can go with Billy Bob Thornton in Fargo. So when they announced his name, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
When they
I
announced,
sort of wished I'd seen it coming. I didn't predict it, but I was like, that didn't take me off guard.
when they announced his name, I was so shocked because I thought if anyone from Fargo would win, it would be the Brit. It would be Martin Freeman, who had the best year of all time with The Hobbit, with Fargo, with Sherlock, and when he lost to Billy Bob Thornton, I couldn't believe it. Look, Billy Bob Thornton, he won before for writing Sling Blade, so we know they like him. But I just felt like this was Martin Freeman's year. I didn't predict Martin Freeman. I was predicting Matthew McConaughey. But if McConaughey lost, I thought it would be Freeman. I would have bet money on that.
Well, that's another lesson we learned, a humbling lesson. And again, we need to write down these things so that if anyone
Yeah.
makes these arguments next year, we slap them. Mark Ruffalo nominated also on the film side. They didn't care, slapped him. Uh, 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 Bill Murray nominated for Olive Kitteridge and for St. Vincent on the film side. They don't care. They slapped him both times.
Hmm.
Even though he was the movie star in the Golden
Yeah.
Globes in the TV category, that just seemed that surprised me just for that reason. I didn't think they'd give it to him
Right.
because of St. Vincent. I thought they'd give it to him because the name on the ballot was Bill Murray and they put him on stage. But yeah, that's just like they don't care how good a year you've had. They clearly didn't watch Sherlock. They clearly didn't nominate The Hobbit. So
How did Maggie Gyllenhaal win this for the Honorable Woman? I don't know what this miniseries is. I haven't seen it. Obviously, have you seen it? What is this? How did she win? No one was predicting her. This is one of the most shocking ones I think of the night.
This was the most surprising to me, and I sort of almost wish they had done this like 3 or 4 months ago. Because right when we opened the prediction center for the nominations, I started with Maggie Gyllenhaal and worked my way down, just because
Well,
I think
why?
it
Why
aired
did
in.
you? Why did you initially think that she would win? What am I not seeing here?
I haven't seen it yet, but I do remember the buzz. It had great reviews. I think it aired at the end of summer. I think it was on Sundance. In like August or September or something like that, and it got amazing reviews. So I think fresher off of that, I was thinking, oh yeah, she might win. But it didn't get a movie or miniseries nomination, so I thought, oh, okay, probably not. But yeah, I can't remember exactly what it's about. It's some sort of political thriller. I think she plays a British Israeli, character. She does an accent. It's a very intense, dramatic role. I know that much. I'm intending to watch it. It's actually streaming on Netflix now, so I'm not surprised if a lot of people would have been able to watch it in recent weeks. Um, so yeah, I mean, that surprised me, but not because of it was out of left field, but because of all the people in that category to upset. She didn't, they didn't nominate it for movie or miniseries. They didn't nominate any other actors from it. So I thought, okay, probably not. And there are other big stars in that category to go for. So that
Right.
I did not see that coming. But yeah, I was sort of like,
Yeah, I was voting for Frances McDormand, but if there was an upset, I thought it would be the other Frances, Frances O'Connor, because they love stars. The Golden Globes love stars. Who won? Jacqueline Bisset won last year, and going back a couple years, Kelsey Grammer won for Boss. Um, so I just thought I never in a million years thought it would have been Maggie Gyllenhaal. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. And for a
yeah, I
second,
think I had her ranked last.
yeah, after she won, for a second I thought, oh my gosh, this means Jake Gyllenhaal's gonna win, and they're gonna have brother and sister Golden Globe wins. That's what they're doing. That's what I thought, but it didn't happen.
Yeah,
What
although that would
about?
have been cool.
Okay, so we kind of talked about the supporting ones, but let's talk about them again. Supporting actor, supporting actress, Matt Bomer, Joanne Froggatt. Uh, I didn't predict either of these, sadly.
I am pissed. If and and now I am, and the good news is I am on record as having made the case for Joanne Froggatt.
Mhm.
I made this case with, and it literally just popped into my head when I was doing the TV Slugfest with Tom and I think Ralph on Tuesday night, and I was going like, is it going to be Kathy Bates? Is it going to be Uzo Aduba? And I thought, well, it could be Joanne Froggatt. I mean, they liked Downton Abbey. They loved Downton Abbey. They nominated it for Best Drama. They nominated her against much bigger name stars who were snubbed, like Maggie Smith from Downton Abbey wasn't nominated. Julia Roberts from The Normal Heart wasn't nominated, but they nominated Joanne Froggatt. So, and there have been instances where you have a left field choice coming in a later season, like Chloe Sevigny for Big Love, one like on the third or fourth season of that show. So I'm like thinking, it's probably going to be Joanne Froggatt. And
Mm.
then I said, I'm probably going to predict her now. And then Tom and Ralph laughed heartily, and peer pressure led me back down to Uzo Aduba, and I predicted Uzo Aduba in the end. I had Joanne Froggatt ranked second. I did not give
Mm.
up hope completely, but yeah, I'm pissed. I threw that away. I really should have held on to that.
I think Gold Derby collectively had her in fifth place, unfortunately, for Joanne. But this kind of proves the Globe's voters are watching TV because that by far was Joanne's best season. She had the great storyline. She almost won the Emmy. I'm convinced of it. If Anna Gunn hadn't been in the Emmy race, Joanne Froggatt would have won that. And
She could have. Yeah.
it just shows that they're watching TV, which I love. I love about the Globe voters. And Matt Bomer, he gave one of the best performances of the year. It was the biggest Emmy shutout possibly of all time. The fact that he lost that Emmy, but here he gets the Globe.
Yeah, now he has a Golden Globe in one hand and a Critics' Choice Award in the other hand, and he can go down to the TV Academy and just start crushing skulls. Now, I want to see, and Quentin Tarantino should direct the movie where Matt Bomer just starts Kill Bill style murdering members of the Television Academy. I would watch that, and they should give him an Emmy for that.
That would be great. Do you think that also, White Collar's final season helped him here. It was a great show, and maybe that helped put him over the edge. But you know what? The performance was really great. The only reason I wasn't predicting him is because you had a movie star in there, Bill Murray. I think a lot of people were going for Bill. Because you mentioned earlier, he was nominated twice. He was nominated on the TV side and on the movie side. But that doesn't matter. Julie Louis-Dreyfus was nominated twice last year, and she lost both of them. She also lost this year for Veep. Gina Rodriguez beat her, and a lot of people saw that coming. I think you did too. But I never got on the Gina Rodriguez bandwagon. I and I regret that decision. I just thought the show was too new that she couldn't win. And I now realize
The Golden Globes, that is the worst argument you
I
could ever
know
make. Oh, it's too fresh and new.
it hasn't even. The thing is, it hasn't even finished its first season. It's only halfway through its first season. So
Yeah. It aired nearly as many episodes. It aired more episodes than True Detective. It aired almost as many episodes as Fargo. It aired, I mean, it's new, but it's been around.
the CW factor. I thought it would be too much to overcome. But congratulations to CW. You won your very first Golden Globe. Uh, Gina
But
Rodriguez
yeah,
backstage, she answered the questions that the press asked her with such grace. I love this girl. She's my new favorite actress, and everyone should go watch that interview she did backstage at the press. Watch the Gold Derby or at YouTube. She starts crying toward the end, and she talks about her family. It's like she was trying to audition for the Emmy Award backstage in the Golden Globes press room. It was really great.
and I think she can do it. I think, this was great for the CW that she was able to win. They did, they don't have that same bias. The WB did win. Carrie Russell won, had a similar analogous situation. She won for Felicity on the drama side when that show debuted. So, they didn't quite have the same bias, but I think it could happen at the Emmys. I think there are so many different networks on television now that if they push her hard and she now has this great visibility and now she's been on television crying so gratefully and she was so great on stage that she is one of those huggable people who I can see them potentially nominating. I really hope the push starts now. We need to get the TV Academy on board now before the rush. Start watching it now if you're watching anyone in the TV Academy. Jane the Virgin should be a nominee for Best Comedy Actress at your awards next year.
Right. And Ralph just emailed. He's watching this video now, so we should give Ralph props for interviewing Gina Rodriguez. That gave her the Gold Derby bump. That's what got her the win, right? It was the Gold Derby bump.
We gave a lot of Gold Derby bumps this year. I mean, I'm always excited when someone I've interviewed wins. Ruth Wilson, she talked about the writer's strike she missed the last time she was nominated at the Golden Globes. I remember we talked about that in our interview, which I'm shamelessly plugging now. You can search for that. It's in one of our Golden Globe video folders. And the two music winners for film, I interviewed both of them also. So it's really nice to think, I helped maybe a little bit, because the Hollywood Foreign Press has got like 80 or 90 people, and if two people see something that they're like, oh, I like this person, you never know. One of our videos could have given that one extra 2 votes or something. That'd be like, we did that. You're welcome, Golden Globe winners.
And maybe at the Emmy, maybe for Emmy campaigning, Jeffrey Tambor will come talk to us because he won. I think he said he's 70 years old, which is amazing. I had no idea he was 70 years old, but he won for Transparent, and his show won for Transparent. And I saw his win coming. I think he was probably number one at Gold Derby. But for Transparent, the show, that was a bit of a surprise to me. Yes, I realize it's the new show, it's the hot new show everyone's talking about, but you had Orange is the New Black in there, and it's never won. We kind of talked earlier about how Orange's time was last year, and it loved up its nominations by submitting in drama instead of comedy. But what did you think of the Transparent Jeffrey Tambor double wins here?
That surprised me too. It's even though yes, it's the new show, it's not like, I mean, this year, they always go for a relatively young and fresh show, and I thought Orange is the New Black still seemed young and fresh enough. People are still talking about it. It's still the hot show. It's still a water cooler kind of show, even after its second season. But what I'm thinking is if the timeline were a little different, if Orange is the New Black was getting all that second season buzz a little bit closer to the voting period, it might have been a different result because Transparent definitely came out later. And it built up slowly, more slowly, and then it peaked at the right time. So I think, the Hollywood Foreign Press doesn't like to look back that far. I mean, that's probably one of the reasons that True Detective lost is because it aired all the way back last winter, and people are just like, that happened? I thought yesterday was the only thing that happened, because they're goldfish at the Hollywood Foreign Press Association.
Yeah, and this pattern that we've been noticing, it held true this year, that if a production wins, one of the actors wins too. Fargo won and Billy Bob Thornton. Transparent won and Jeffrey Tambor. And then on the drama side, we had The Affair, which I did not predict, and we had Ruth Wilson win, which I did not predict. Were you predicting either of those two?
No, I had them both ranked second, and I saw how they could win. I just thought, House of Cards is such a cool show, and it's so it has such a sense of prestige to it. You got David Fincher behind the scenes, Bo Willimon, Oscar nominee, Kevin Spacey and Robin Wright. It's so slickly produced and shot. It's got the Netflix factor. It just seemed right. But again, it's another situation where maybe the timing was off for it. Maybe last year would have been its year to win, its first year on the air, but it ran into the Breaking Bad buzzsaw, and it debuted its episodes way back in February, and the Affair just finished, and so go again, go with fresh and new, unless you have, like, Breaking Bad last year was obviously gonna win, but unless you have something that clear for a second season or a third or fourth or fifth season show to win. For next year, I'm going as fresh as humanly possible. As like, did you just have your first episode the day before ballots were due? You're gonna win.
Right. It's a good strategy. I think in our slugfest we did last week, I said I'm 100% confident it'll be House of Cards, Kevin Spacey, and Viola Davis. I got one of the three of my 100% confident locks. Poor Viola Davis, what happened there? Is it because she didn't interview with Gold Derby? Is that why she lost?
Well, of course. I mean, no one wins without coming through us first. So if Viola's people are watching, we are available. We have several months before the Emmy season. So book us as whenever you can, because we'd be happy to help you out there.
And you know what? I'm going to call it. She's 100% lock for the Emmy. But she has that wig episode, and come on, the Emmys you submit episodes. Nothing will beat that wig episode.
She has the name recognition to get a nomination at the Emmys, and she has the tapes. I mean, and I think that's what's pivotal for her. So, I think it'll, for instance, be harder for Ruth Wilson to get the Emmy nomination because she doesn't have quite the same name recognition, though I think Ruth Wilson also has dynamite episode submissions that would be competitive also.
Right. And then Kevin Spacey, I think he gave the best TV speech of the night. Besides the F-bomb part, I think the second half of his speech was really, really good when he talked about always being better. And in the press room, Julianne Moore mentioned his speech, and who was that? Michael Keaton mentioned his speech too. So his speech didn't just touch people at home; it touched people in the audience, which is really, really cool. 8 nominations, he finally wins. That was really, really rewarding because I was predicting him. Some people changed their mind at the last second, but I kept with him.
I kept him too. Because I know Tom had that theory that there was something amiss in the Hollywood Foreign Press with Kevin Spacey, and I didn't know what it was or what it could be, and I didn't want to switch my prediction at the last minute. Scrambling, go like, oh, I think something might be there. I needed a little bit more. So I kept House of Cards for Best Drama and Kevin Spacey for Best Actor. That half paid off, but yeah, I'm glad I kept them both, even though I was wrong for one.
Yeah, and he became Netflix's only win of the night, right? And
He did. Yeah, we were predicting at least four.
yeah,
And yeah, and it ended up with just one. Amazon Prime with one show beat both of Netflix's shows.
yeah, and HBO only won one for Matt Bomer. Netflix only wins one. Gold Derby, I think, was predicting four for each of those networks. So I guess the
Yeah.
lesson next year, they don't like to give that many awards to an individual network. They love to spread the wealth. And it's just, you have to pick the right network to win the right show because some people thought the affair would win just for Ruth, but it won for show and for Ruth. So you have to be, you know, you have to know what they're thinking, and it's impossible to know because it's only 85 people. You have to flip a coin, and you have to be right.
But we now have some very concrete patterns that we've seen. Getting a best program nomination if you otherwise look like a front runner and then you don't get a program nomination for your show, we can move you down automatically. Because I really think that's the biggest lesson. Like, Gina Rodriguez getting that Jane the Virgin nomination for Best Comedy Series shot her way ahead of Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Ruth Wilson especially Ruth Wilson, beating the movie star Viola Davis. Ruth Wilson had the Best Series nomination. How to Get Away with Murder was not nominated. So that's it turns out to be a very, very important aspect of this.
Right. And I just noticed Claire Danes. She was 4 for 4. Um, she's never lost a Golden Globe until tonight. She finally lost. Poor Claire Danes.
That is one of the weirdest records at the Golden Globes. Like, she was 4 for 4. Like, I mean, and there were times when she wasn't nominated, obviously, but when she was nominated, she always won. And so this year must have been like an odd experience for her. I don't know if she knows what to do with herself when she's not leading with a Golden Globe.
Right. And Christoph Waltz too. He won for Django and he won for Inglourious Bastards, and he finally loses tonight for Big Eyes. It must be weird for these guys that are always winning. Compared to the Kevin Spaceys of the world who win on their eighth try.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kevin Spacey, even if he lost, he could just snuggle up with one of his 2 Oscars. He's fine.
Yeah, backstage, when he came backstage to the press room, he was at the microphone and he's like, "Do I call on people? I don't like." And then he's like, "Never mind, I know what to do. I've been here before." Meaning he's won awards before, not won a Golden Globe before.
But it's been a while. I can't remember the last time, Kevin Spacey won one of the major, televised, big hoopla awards. He might have won a Tony since his last Oscar. I can't remember.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts on the 72nd Golden Globe Awards?
Um, I'm just I'm sort of glad they're over, and not because they were bad, but just because we put so much. It's like every event, the Emmys, the Oscars. We put so much thought and so much anticipation and so much analysis into them that it's nice just to have the winners on record and just to sort of put it away and move on to the next thing, which is Oscar nominations this week, which is going to be its own exhausting hoopla leading up to that for the next few days. But after that, we will have some definite answers, and hopefully all of my answers will be right.
Right. It's so funny. I consider myself more of a TV pundit than a movie pundit, but I killed it on the film side. I killed myself on the TV side. I only got a couple right, which is really embarrassing. But
yeah, I haven't counted. I did much better on film than on TV, and including a couple of those close calls. So I think my score might be slightly above whatever the average is, thanks to a couple of those close calls. But then, of course, they're the close calls that I missed. There are a lot of people who predicted Birdman that I didn't predict, so I'm going to lose some ground there. But not many people were predicting Grand Budapest, so I'm not too worried about that one.
right. All right. Thank you, Derby, for watching. I'm sure we'll have many, many more slugfests. Coming up next are the SAG Awards and, of course, the Oscar nominations. So stay tuned to goldderby.com.